So we'll resume at 7:05 p.m. February 17th. We'll recap briefly what happened here. The Planning Commission meeting started at 6:32, February 17th, 2026. We did the call to order, 6:32. Pledge of Allegiance, consent agenda. The minutes from January 20th, 2026 were approved as written with a motion by Commissioner Fatizzi, second by Commissioner Jasper. General public comment was open at 6:35. It was closed at 6:35. There were no written comments and no one present. We realized that no one was online and the computer wasn't on, and we realized we weren't being recorded. So we stopped to call at 6:36. We took a recess at 6:40 until we could get the recording started and get the Zoom meeting up and running. And at at whatever I said, 7:05, we are now resuming the meeting with, what's next?
I would start with general public comments and redo that and
So,
read that back into the record.
yeah, we finished the general public comments.
But we didn't have anybody online, I guess is my point. Right, so I would just redo general public comments. We didn't have anything written, but we didn't have anybody online at the time, and there might be now. I'm just saying from a practice standpoint, just going through it, and if
Okay.
nobody has anything to say, right?
Well, if someone was online, would we know it?
Says 0 attendees?
Yes.
0 attendees. So is it safe to assume that we'd be wasting our time asking for someone?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so public hearing was not happening. Unfinished business at 7:07. Proposed amendments to Title 15 and Chapters 12.32 and 17.100 Sedro-Woolley Municipal Code to add address and street name standards.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that. Okay, so this is our Planning Commission's second read of the proposed amendments to introduce an address and street naming code to Sedro-Woolley. And just to recap, this was originally suggested by our city attorney and by the Skagit County Address Authority. Right now, addressing and street naming regulations are largely based at the staff's discretion, and so there's some liability concerns with that. And so codifying some addressing and street naming standards will both give staff more teeth in enforcing best practices, as well as reduce liability for the city. Since the previous Planning Commission meeting, we had some comments from planning commissioners for a few actions. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things that I'm still working on. I'm still working on fees for the street name petition. I still need to work with the finance and the streets department on getting what an appropriate figure for that fee. So that is still in a work in progress. And then the police department, public safety is always very busy. So getting comments from them is still a work in progress right now. However, our fire chief and our assistant fire chief have reviewed the proposed code, and I have incorporated their comments. Other departments that have looked at the proposed code includes the Skagit County 911 Center. Both their GIS staff and the director of the 911 Center reviewed the code, provided their comments, and those comments are outlined in the draft amendments in red, and there's text on the right-hand side that states that they came from the 911 Center. Public Works Engineering and our building department and our streets department all internally have reviewed the code update. Most of the changes here work to reference the Public Works Department standards, which is what they operate off of, and they will be having a larger update to their Public Works standards here this year, most likely. A few other minor changes were added since the Planning Commission last reviewed the amendment. We added a definition for an addressable entity. That is something that Skagit County refers to, and we matched our definition to what Skagit County uses. We also emphasized the reference to Google Maps because that was important to the Planning Commission, and we included a reference to other online navigation and mapping agencies as those might come about in the future. We just referenced OpenStreets as one that has been historically present for the last 2 decades, but we threw in the et cetera for other programs like Apple Maps, Waze, anything like that. In the display of addresses, a comment from the 911 center was to exclude address signs from being required on highway mile markers and bridges. The Skagit County 911 center does require an address for those addressable entities, but we will not require an address sign for those. Skagit County 911 center also recommended some more individuals with Sedro-Woolley, prominence, including Susie Watwicken, Edith Beadle, and Susie Osterman Alverson. Those are all individuals that have played a role in the history of Sedro-Woolley, and Skagit 911 Center recommended including those as potential street names in the future. Lastly, Skagit 911 Center also wanted to make sure that if we approve the use of a non-standard street suffix like alley, highway, parkway, any of those examples that we've included in subsection 8 under the 15.24.040 street naming, any of those non-standard street suffixes, the Skagit County 911 Center wanted to make sure that they had review and approval over that. Now, Skagit County 911 Center and the fire department will have review over all address changes and all street name changes, but they just wanted to emphasize this, and that's why that was added to code. Okay, those were all of the proposed changes to the amendments. Now, before we get into the questions, you all have 2 envelopes up there. I want you guys to take envelope A, and so what I'll be walking you through here is just an exercise for if your address had to be changed all of a sudden. So on the envelope, it is your home address. That is not the address that is getting changed in the notice. You guys can go ahead and open envelope A. The address that is referenced in envelope A is a non-conforming address. It's a fake address. It's not a real address in Sedro-Woolley, but it is 120 and a half Washington Street. And so we don't allow halves in Sedro-Woolley, and so this was probably...
This is the wrong address.
Oh, well, that's the address we have on file. We'll speak after and get your updated address.
They changed it already.
315, that was years ago.
So a 120 and a half is a non-conforming address in Sedro-Woolley. Years ago, perhaps the planning department or the public works department may have allowed a 1/2 address, but we don't allow those anymore. And so the paper that, the document that's on top is the official letter or the official warning that they get from the city. They usually receive this warning a 1.5 to 2 months before the actual address change. And so on here, it specifies all the information why an address change is needed. It's to improve emergency response, what the tentative new address is, 116 Washington Street, and the date that it would be made official, April 1st, 2026. And then it's my contact information below. And so the property owner receives this in the mail. They have a few weeks to process it, start preparing their documents, contact the city for any concerns that they may have. And then they also will receive in the mail this address change recommendations letter. Now, this is something that has been edited from Skagit County. They have a similar document that they send out for address changes. But a lot of times, especially with USPS, which is heavily impacted from address changes, USPS needs to get those address changes updated rather quickly, and oftentimes the most efficient way to get that address change on USPS's system is to submit a handwritten notice of address change. And so this is specifying the instructions on how to do that. It's also specifying the instructions on how to tell your delivery drivers where your new address is in case Google Maps hasn't updated yet. And now the last document, the 2-page document, is the notice of official address. This is what gets sent once on April 1st, 2026, once that address has become official. And so on here, it includes the change from and the change to, what the official address is with the appropriate latitude and longitude, the appropriate parcel, and the approval date from the planning department, the fire department, and the Skagit County 911 Center. And then below that is any clarifying information for other individuals like PSC or Skagit PUD, any other entities that rely on addresses. It also specifies the requirements in our municipal code, which says all structures require an address sign. On the 3rd page is where our proof of latitude and longitude is. This is a high-level view of Sedro-Woolley because this is a fake address change. If this was a real notice of official address, this would be zoomed in on the property, and each of the entrances to the building would be marked and their latitude and longitude recorded. Lastly is all of the recipients who receive a notice of official address change. This is who we currently send it to now. If in the code, if the Planning Commission or City Council want to add any other entities to this list, we certainly can. And I also want to emphasize, in the past, Verizon Wireless and Cascade Natural Gas were recipients, but their emails that we had on file are no longer active, and we have tried to reach out by phone call and mail, snail mail, and we have not received a response. So we have not been sending address updates to Verizon or Cascade Natural Gas because of that.
Quick question.
Sure.
On, I guess, page 2 of the 2-page document, you're saying here that the signs can be purchased by the Community Development Department, starting at $30 per sign. So you're going to charge the homeowner for a house sign for the address change?
So our
Sure.
current code right now has some reflectivity standards for our address signs. They need to be reflective at night, and they also need to be 5 inches in size. What that is saying is you can buy a sign from the Community Development Department starting at $30, or you can purchase your own sign or make your own sign that is reflective and has 5-inch blue numbers. But we charge based off of material and labor for those signs, so we
Right.
don't make a profit from them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just more worried about like the person who's in an ADU because they are looking for cheap rent and $30 is half a week's worth of groceries.
Yeah, $30 definitely adds up. And that's a good point. That's maybe something we can look at too, is maybe reduced fees for ADUs or reduced fees for low-income housing, or
Yeah.
waive the address sign fee. There's definitely some ideas for that.
Yeah.
So just a comment, and it's actually something that I actually have a note on as we start talking about method of assigning an address. So latitude, longitude, it's a GPS location, okay? So when it comes to the address, okay, the real precise address would be that GPS in addition to it. And it's one thing, it's just something that I've been caught up on now for going on to 2 years on the public safety end. Let's not make the assumption that a structure is still going to be there, right? So we have an address at a front door. So as we build a database going forward, we should also have the GPS latitude, longitude of that front door stored someplace. Because at some point in the future, that data is going to be invaluable. I mean, picture, a gas explosion or whatever the situation is where first responders got to get to a specific place, signage, structures, that might not be there, but you might have victims buried under something, and it's that GPS location that tells us where that front door used to be. And I'm looking at other expansions as well. Where's my power shut off? Where's my water shut off? Where's my gas shut off? And I believe the utilities, Skagit PUD, already has that mapped as well. So as we move forward, let's think future as to having that series of numbers, which is really no big deal, incorporated into how we track the addresses just in general.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and that is something that the Skagit County 911 Center thought about a while back. I don't know how long back, but all of the City of Sedro-Woolley addresses, their latitude and longitude have been recorded, and they're
Right
on
on.
file on the GIS system
Cool.
at Skagit County 911 Center, and it's really easy to get those values. They're all recorded, and we continually update them anytime new addresses come in. And then also for demolition permits, we send the notices to the Skagit County 911 Center for when a building is removed.
Right.
That way it's continually updated.
So when we put our code together and we're updating this, I think it's important that we have that language somewhere in that document, right? That's part of that 1524025 method of assigning. That should be in addition to whatever we come up with. Snowflake Lane doesn't mean anything if you're in the middle of the night and you got something going down and you have to find a place.
Yes, I'll make sure if it's not already there that a reference to that is added. And I also want to add to your comment that these notice of official addresses are not destroyed. They get archived and sent to the state. In the case of a statewide catastrophe,
Right.
the state hangs on to these so that they can identify addresses across the state.
Thank you.
Any other questions before I move on to envelope B?
Isn't latitude and longitude supposed to have a north and a west at the end of them, or do they don't do that anymore?
That is one way to notate it. I do positive and negative because that is how the GIS Center keeps track of it.
Positive and negative instead
Yeah.
of north, okay.
Yeah.
That, and then when we were talking about the $30 sign, it dawned on me that when I had his address change, they sent me, I might have paid for it, I didn't know if they, anyway, it came in the mail or however it came. And I was supposed to put it up because they want all signs uniform. Is that no longer a thing? Because I thought they all had to be the same color, the same reflection, and the same size and everything.
Yep, they still have to be the same size, same letter size, same reflectivity, same color. It's just, if you know somebody that makes signs that can make it to those specifications, that's fine.
Okay, got it. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I'm old school when it comes to latitude and longitude. Okay. I'm hip with the scene now.
I like it.
Not with the language, though.
Can that be a meme? Yes, whatever my kids are talking about.
Okay, well, with that, we can move on to envelope B. So you feel free to open up that one. This envelope is supposed to be, let's say, there's a subdivision going in next door, and you're curious about what that street name is going to be or what those addresses are going to be. And so let's say you call the city of Sedro-Woolley, or you stop by City Hall and you request to be made a party of record for the project, so you get updated and notices, which many of our residents do. And so the first notice that you would receive would be the notice of official street name, and it could be a notice of official street name and address if Skagit County 911 and Fire and Planning have all approved the name and the address. And so it's a very brief message. It's just stating you are receiving this notice because you requested to be a party of record, and the notice itself will be attached. And that is how residents will be informed of new street names in their neighborhood. And so the other two attachments, the second one is the notice of official street name, and the third one is the notice of official address. These are always sent to the developer as well as the property owner, and then they are also sent to any parties of record, so anybody that makes a comment on the SEPA environmental review or makes a comment on the notice of application comment period. And so this notice of official street name, it indicates the official street name when it was approved, the approved address range, which is on the second page. So you'll see here for a BYK project, which some of the planning commissioners are very familiar with, the address range that was reviewed by Skagit County 911 and the planning department, and which was ultimately approved. And then third is a vicinity map for any of our agencies who need to get a better idea of where this new street is going. And then lastly, our recipients who you saw on the last notice. And so for subdivisions often have many, many more addresses than just a simple change of address. So the notice of address change for those look a little bit differently. You'll notice that there is no change from change to table. Instead, it's just a table of the approved addresses, including the parcel number if it's known yet. The assessor sometimes doesn't assign parcel numbers until much later. And then the latitude and longitude. And so for new structures like this, the latitude and longitude is identified where the driveway is, because we can't always tell where the primary entrance to the door is for new construction, not until the building is built. And at that point, things start moving pretty quickly to get people moved in. You'll also notice for this situation, because it was new construction, I had to overlay a PDF of the approved civil plans over an aerial image in GIS. And so that is why the addresses and the coordinates have different approval dates from Skagit 911. Skagit 911 approved the addresses much earlier because we weren't sure about where the coordinates were going to be until later that year.
Hey, here's a question, and it's just keeping the language consistent. We all get latitude, longitude, we should at least, looking at a globe. do we want to just bring this to GPS location? Because that's exactly what it is. And that's more of, I think, common language of of where you're actually at. It's referred to as my GPS location. I don't say I'm at latitude, longitude. I'm going to give these combination of numbers. Or do we want to incorporate that somewhere in addition to this? The GPS location is the latitude and longitude I get.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think to make sure that our code is clear, I don't think it would hurt to put both and put latitude and longitude parentheses GPS location or the inverse.
Because that's what it's referred to. What's your GPS location?
The fourth page is when I overlaid the coordinates in GIS, I had to do converting from hours, minutes, seconds, latitude or a coordinate system to a decimal coordinate system, and so that is the proof of that here on, if you're a math nerd. And then, as I said before, all of the recipients who get the notice of address is on the final page. So when a development is going in next door or near you, the notice is not as scary. It's more of an informal notice. When an address change is going on at your property, you do receive this binding document that does get sent to the state archives eventually. And that is the official address until the address is changed legally again in the future, if at all.
You know, this LP number, that's the number posted on the yellow signs, correct?
Yes, sir. The LP stands for long plat. It's our file system. So at this point, I still need to work with police and then the finance and streets department for those last two items, get comments from the police department, and then the fees for a street name change petition. And then other than that, I am hoping that the planning commission will request a public hearing at the March meeting, but if we need more time, we can certainly do that.
I think it looks great. Thanks for the track changes on the Word document too, so that we could know what was added.
Of course.
You've done a lot of work.
Thank you.
I particularly like your presentation. I think this is awesome. That
Yeah.
you went through the trouble of making these for everybody, so we actually got to see what it's like.
Well,
Sorry to interrupt. Can we speak into the mic?
Sorry, Woody. Yeah. Giving him kudos for his presentation on the envelopes.
Yeah.
It was very nice.
my mom is a teacher, so I get tips from her on how to make presentations more engaging.
Just one last thing. Google obviously is the main player in the mapping area, or one of them. Should we be a little bit more generic to keep ourselves open and not necessarily Google Maps? Because I've been in places where Google Maps is dead wrong. I'm just saying, there are errors in their mapping system, but we definitely want to include some type of, third-party market mapping system that's general, Google obviously being one of them, but it's not the only one.
Yeah, I can think about how to phrase that, but just a reference to
Like
a
example,
generic-
Google Maps, or, that's just one of them, but like I said, I used Google Maps when I was in Utah, and it drove me around in circles by the time I actually found the hotel. It dead-ended me. It was like, okay, where do I go? There's BYU. There's the stadium. Where's the hotel?
Yeah, by no means, it's definitely not perfect.
Yeah, you mentioned other GPS-based navigation systems, right, in here?
Yeah, maybe we just strike Google Maps and just say GPS-based navigation systems and just leave it at that.
Mapping navigation
Yeah.
systems, yeah. Some attorney from Google might call us saying, you used our trademark in your code. Right?
Is it true that GPS could be shut off at any time in times of war? I just laugh when I hear that because just think of all the Teslas that drive off the road.
I have no clue. I am not the person to ask.
It's still, I think, I'm pretty sure when I took the last Coast Guard test, they said, yes or no, true or false, can GPS be shut off at any time? And the answer was yes. So,
No, it's a solar flare that's going to take out all the satellites. Do you know that?
I'm looking at the Army commander to my left.
As,
Making eye contact, and I can neither confirm nor deny.
I was glad you opened that can of worms too,
Or
because
deny.
I was watching day before yesterday as they were explaining how the Ukrainians were offering Starlink things and then asking the Russian units for their GPS location so that they could get the signal sent, and then they sent the drones and demilitarized them, I guess is the term they use nowadays. So,
we digress.
I think you did a wonderful job. I like how you
Yes.
went out to all the different organizations, because everyone has a different thing that they're looking for. Just some minor questions on page 14, 15.24.020 at the bottom of the page. There's, right there, Woody, thank you. Second line, point on the eastern boundary of the west half of section 13. Is that a duplicate, maybe an error? Or is it really west half of the west half?
It is really the west half of the west half. That's how, what's it called?
That's how
Legal
description,
descriptions
That's how
are
the legal
written.
description
Yes.
reads. Yeah, it's that weird sometimes.
Just double checking that one, that it wasn't,
very confusing.
yes.
But you don't have a valid real estate contract without a legal description.
Page number 19 of the packet, I believe there's 2 point number 2s.
That is a typo. I will correct that.
Okay. Page 21, I had to look up Stravenue, which is, references only Tucson, Arizona, but if we want to include it, that's great too. It was a new term for me.
Yeah, it's a new concept common down in Arizona and other Sunbelt cities. It's used for diagonally oriented streets. When you have streets going one direction, avenues going in the other, make the diagonals a stravenue. I didn't know if the Planning Commission or City Council had any thoughts on that, but I thought it wouldn't hurt to throw it in.
I like it. I just wanted to put on record that I did have to look that up. Down on page 23, it says 30 days after notice is sent, but other places on the document, it says 30 calendar days. We might want the consistency of always, when we put a number of days, using calendar rather than leaving it open to someone else possibly saying business days or interpreting it different.
I agree. Thank you.
That's really important, by the way. It's a big deal.
And then page 24, the same thing, 7 calendar days within 30 calendar days is my only suggestion. Other than that, excellent job.
Thank you.
You know, the days and how you refer to it, it goes into the computation of time calculation, which could be the difference between something happening or something not happening. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're talking 60 days, the difference between calendar days and business days is quite significant.
yeah.
And then you
Throw
have
some
someone
holidays
complaining
in.
'cause they weren't given due diligence, they weren't given the time period they were allowed.
Anyone else, any comments, observations? Okay, Commissioner Devines?
I had a question on page 16 of the packet,
Page 13,
page 16.
16.
16.
Item number H. Addressed on a sign with public safety as priority. If the city addresses on a sign to the same street as the Shannon County addresses, city may, at the discretion of the county, utilize the city's number scheme for accessible entities located outside of an incorporated of the city. I had thought that in the previous draft from the last meeting, the street name would not be the same in a street in Skagit County or in Washington County where Sedro-Woolley served. So if that's the case, when would two street names ever be the same?
Yeah, I see the point you're making there. So,
Or am I not reading it correctly?
no, I think that there's just one clarifying point I want to make. So, for example, Garden of Eden Road is a street that is contiguous. Well, maybe that's not a good example. Fruitdale Road is a street that is contiguous, that is within the city limits as well as within the county's limits. And so, because it is contiguous throughout the entire length of the road, we can use the same road name for that entire road. However, we can't just call another road, let's say in Anacortes, Fruitdale Road, because then that would be duplicative of the street name that's already in Skagit County. So a road can have the same name in the city and in the county if it's physically the same road that travels through the county and the city. But one road here in the city that is separate from another road here in the county, they can't share the same name.
So we're talking city-county, not city-city. Like there's 34th Street Northwest all over the place, right? So it's just when the city continues into a county jurisdiction, it still keeps the same name.
Yes.
Yeah.
Commissioner Bowman, anything?
Ashton, I just wanted to tell you that I love the exercise and the little mailings are very cute.
Thank you.
I think you did a great job on this. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? Commissioner DuBois?
It may be very trivial. Say there could be 100 street names per block. On page number 15, I just found it rather intriguing because there could be 100 addresses in one block. Maybe so. I just wonder why you needed so many.
That's just the typical way cities in the U.S. do addressing. It's the most common practice to assign 50 numbers to each side of the block. That way each block represents 100, 200, 300. It's just easy for navigation.
But there are, okay, all right, thank you.
Ashton, were you hoping that Planning Commission would want to see a public hearing next month?
Yes, that would be the plan.
So you want one of us to make a motion to have a public hearing on Title 12 and 15? I'm just looking at your recommended action. Hang on.
What day is that?
March 17th he has.
March 17th, okay.
Yeah, recommend a public hearing at the March 17th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting for the proposed amendments to Title 15, chapters 12.32 and 17.100.
Can we start? We all good? So I make a motion to hold a public hearing on March 17th, 2026, to address the proposed amendments to Title 15 and Chapters 12.32 and 17.100 SWMC to add address and street name standards to the existing code.
Thank you, Commissioner Fatisi. Do I have a second?
I second.
Commissioner Jasper, second it. All those in favor of a public meeting on March 17th, 2026 to discuss Title 15, Chapter, yada, yada, what Joe said. All in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. We will be having a public meeting on March 17th.
You're in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's St. Patrick's Day, isn't it?
It is.
I'll wear green.
We're green.
I'll dress the same way.
You had it vetted so well by so many entities, I figured it had to be pretty darn good. Ready for our meeting.
A lot of emails have been going out with this attached, yeah.
It's a big deal. It really is.
Okay, that closes that section of our meeting at 7:41. And we move on to new business. Any new business? Information discussion items. What's that? Western Washington University student recommendations on code updates?
I'll take it from here.
7:41.
Cool. Yeah, this is just kind of an informative thing, an FYI. So I was contacted by Western Washington's Land Use Regulations course, the professor, Julie Nichols, for kind of a win-win situation where her students were hoping to do some work on proposing code updates for jurisdictions, and we're in the need of doing some of that in lieu of the comp plan update. So we've kind of outlined some updates that we'd like them to work on. For winter quarter, they will be working on some updates to the missing middle housing residential zoning code regulations. So from now through March 11th, we'll be working closely, staff, with those students to make sure what they're working on aligns closely with the public feedback that we've gotten, as well as the feedback from Planning Commission and the City Council as well, on kind of what direction we wanted to take with those housing strategies. March 4th, I believe, is their first kind of presentation just internally to us, kind of get feedback from us and make sure they're on the right track. And March 11th is when they'll have a final kind of memo put together for us in time for March 17th. So we should have a draft amendment ready to go by then, by the next meeting. There is potential for them to come and do a presentation to the Planning Commission. We're still kind of ironing that out with the professor to see if that's a possibility, but I recommended that they do that. It's definitely a super big get your foot in the door, getting to present in a public setting like this. So yeah, more to come. Spring quarter, we'll be working with another group of students, a similar thing just with the design standards and some of the smaller code updates, but we want to tackle the missing middle housing stuff first, just knowing that that's a priority for us.
Okay, just, I'm a little wary on this, okay? Because when you're looking at a textbook versus reality, they're two different things. Do we want to approach this more of letting them do intern time, as the way Ashton started, a couple of years back, where it's not like just they're sitting there and they're looking at Seattle and wherever. This is a big deal. In a way, it should be structured for the different communities, because our needs are very, very different than a lot of other communities throughout the state. And when you're in an academic environment, you tend to look at things, I guess, the way Olympia looks at it versus the way that we need to look at it. So all I'm saying is I think it's great to have the resources, but also that resource needs to be managed. I'm just throwing that out there, okay?
Absolutely agree with
Okay.
you. Yeah, so that's why we're going to be doing like weekly or more often than weekly check-in meetings and making sure that they're on the right track with what we're hoping to get from this. And again, we will get a memo from them, but it's going to be coming from staff, what we officially put out to you. So,
A lot of us have flexibility in our schedules, specifically me, and I think Joe as well. So I wouldn't be averse, unless Tom has some other feelings on it, to be included in some of those meetings, because I think it's really important to show leadership for the younger generations, okay? Because I think this is such a critical, it's just a position that is not going to change by AI. That's going to be a tool that's going to be in addition to it. However, you know, the hands and boots on the ground are really the most important thing. So if they're in that environment and you only have even a half an hour, 45 minutes, and you have an agenda to go through different things to see what they're looking at and provide some guidance, I have no problem if I know ahead of time, and I think a bunch of us would be more than willing as well to sit in on that, to assist in that whole process.
I appreciate that. I think I would like to keep your participation at the planning commission level and have them present their findings, have staff present what they have discovered through working with them, and keep it at that level. Let them work together in their team and in their class situation, and there'll be lots of oversight from staff.
It's your decision,
Yeah.
but I'm putting the offer out on
I
the
appreciate
table,
that.
that's
Thank
all.
you. Yeah, yeah, thanks.
I kind of get it, but on the other hand, I mean, I look at stuff from all over the world. Okay, I watch things. I read stuff about building all over the world. I studied architecture. There are no bad ideas. Okay, we can weed them if they're not good, but let them have their ideas. Let them present their ideas. You know, if they, you know, want to do a wad and dauble house, you know, here that might not work really well, although it works in England where it rains. But I'm just saying, you know, but let's let them have their ideas and present their facts and do their presentation is my point of view, because it may not be, all ideas may not be perfect for Sedro-Woolley, but they're still, all ideas are good ideas when it comes to building, so.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. I think we're both architects, you know, sitting up here and, you know, when I was in college, we had big firms that would come in and they would give us ideas and, you know, we would, you know, generate floor plans or, you know, architectural detailing and, you know, things of that nature. And it was a learning process both ways. You know, we got to learn like the process and what it took, you know, to be an architect, but then they also got to pick the brains of young minds who were, you know, really creative, thinking outside the box. And, you know, you work in the corporate world and you just kind of get stuck into this lock rhythm. But, you know, these young minds who can think outside the box, you know, you could generate some really great novel ideas from that. So I'm totally supportive of this. This is great.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, I was trying to think of an example, but I mean, they will present an idea that might not work the way they present it, but it's something that I've never thought of, and maybe it's simply changing the material, but the layout is great, or the material's great, but the layout isn't great, or, you know, just something simple like that. So, yeah, anyway, yeah.
And you don't have to pay them.
That's the best part.
It's great for a budget. Free consultants.
Anyone else? Well, thank you for that.
of course, yeah. So we're hoping to have that draft of recommendations ready by March 17th. So that might be a busy St. Patrick's Day. We'll see.
Just a question, hasn't the comp plan been signed off on for, is that a yes or no? I mean,
That's a
I
no.
was actually when you were talking about it, I'm glad you asked, because I forgot that I wanted to ask, so.
Yeah, we're still in the 60-day commerce review.
okay.
period.
And that ends
And with that-
end of March.
So it was submitted to the state already, is what we're saying?
Yes.
So what the council approved was that final draft that we sent over, and now they sent it down to Olympia, because it is a 60-day review.
It is, and council has not approved it. They saw the latest version, which was the version just after you guys saw it.
Okay.
With your edits. And now they've been invited during this time period to submit their comments as well. So we're expecting to see comments back from council, and we'll present all of their comments to council at once. And while that's happening, the 60-day period continues. We put the deadline for getting council comments back February 25th, and then we'll present them at their next work session, which I think is March 1st. But we still have another 3.5 weeks before the 60-day period is done, and expect to have more comments.
But isn't there a statutory requirement that it had to be adopted and approved by the end of last year?
Yes, it did.
So how did we skirt, was it because of the floods that we got an additional 60, 90 days?
No, this, the problem that threw us off, we were almost ready last summer, and then there were the hearings from the Growth Management
Right,
Hearings
on
Board. or
different
the
lawsuits,
decisions.
Kitsap and.
Yeah,
and
so we had to go back
Mercer
through
Island.
and comb through it again and make sure that we've got everything in there that we think we need to have to meet these last-minute requirements from
Okay.
the state.
So that's how we were able to extend that time
Yeah,
period?
yes.
Was based upon litigation from
Yeah.
other communities submitting
Right.
theirs? Okay.
We won't see a penalty, knock on wood.
Right, that's where I'm going
We've
with
been in
this.
touch with the state, and they understand. We're not the only city that's
Okay.
struggling. Those decisions really threw a lot of cities and counties off their cycle because of
So
those
we
last-minute
still have the
decisions.
ability to update the comp plan that we've already submitted? So if we're looking at now updating with input from other parties, okay, are we going to go in now and update different elements
If
of the
needed.
comprehensive plan and then resubmit it for
No.
another 60 days?
No. We only have the one 60-day period. And so it's up to those agencies, their assignment is to get us comments back based on their review. So far, we've had two agencies, DNR and Geological
Okay.
Survey, yeah.
So within the 60 days, we could still make adjustments?
Yes,
Okay, so we're still, that clock is still going?
yes.
Okay.
So then we'll get all the comments back, and we'll do a presentation to council at their April work session, which is April 1st, I think. No kidding. And then move for adoption. And I'm assuming, I shouldn't say I'm assuming, I'm hoping that'll be an easy process without a lot of chaos.
So does the doc come back to us for review after these modifications are made?
No, it's at city council level now.
Okay.
City council can remand it back to the planning commission, but that's pretty rare that happens.
But will we at least see what changes are being made? Whether we approve them or not?
I mean, we'll post it online. We can send it to you directly as well.
I think that would be appreciated around here, yeah.
Yeah. And the latest version is online now.
Okay.
It is a huge document, so
That is what it is.
I
but
might
if-
just ask that you, like, I could let you know when it's posted.
But
Check it
if
out.
we're making changes, and now we're looking at additional changes, okay, for March, I just think it's wise that we know what we're, what we submitted along and what was actually modified along the trip from here to someplace else.
We're allowed to attend those meetings just as residents, right? Those are open meetings too?
My thought with comments back from the state, it depends on what we get back. So far, it's pretty benign. But if we get some back that causes some substantive changes,
I think you
then
referred
I
to
would,
it as.
I would see if we could do a joint meeting between planning commission and city council, so we could present the same stuff at the same time. I'm hoping it won't be.
I just think it's important that everybody's on the same page. That's all I'm saying. I'm not looking to cause any problems at all, just.
Yeah. Yeah, I worry sometimes about which state agency is going to say what, or who's going to say what, or, I just want to make sure that I don't want to jinx it, superstitious. So, so far, so good.
Okay.
Yeah. But yes, we'll keep you posted.
I know the first two rounds that I did, 2005, and I don't remember what the second one was, if it was 12 or 16, but anyway, both of those, we didn't take turns, but people who were interested sat in on the city council meetings, and basically were just there in case they had questions about what was the planning commission thinking here, kind of things on particular issues, and that was kind of helpful to do that. But we weren't advocating necessarily, but we were answering questions. Why did you choose to have a 30-foot buffer here between industrial and residential, or something like that? And then we could explain what the general thought process was for the planning commission.
Fully supporting staff at that level, since we're the ones that came up with it.
Any other comments? We'll move on to adjournment, but I just wanted to, I heard that Mayor Johnson's resigning April 3rd, is her last day. I just wanted to publicly say thank you for her years of service and her positive recognition to the Planning Commission, always encouraging us and, writing letters saying how much we're appreciated, and I appreciate that. And I wish her well in whatever she's going to go on to.
We're happy to pass that on to her.
Yeah, thank you. Anything else before we adjourn?
Well, somebody needs to make a motion to adjourn. No. I make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn.
I'll
by
second it.
Commissioner Sexton seconds. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, say nay. We're out of here.
Now that we're off record,